First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
All eyes are on Hurricane Ian. The giant storm is set to overrun Florida with wind and rain. Many schools, including UF, will close the rest of the week, and the Gator football game will be delayed until Sunday. The hurricane is already bringing high winds to the Florida Keys, and the outer rain bands are hitting Miami and Fort Myers. WUFT News is closely tracking Hurricane Ian, which may make landfall tomorrow, perhaps in southwest Florida. Welcome to First at 5 from WUFT News. I'm Alexus Cleavenger.
And I'm Jacob Sedesse. Thanks for joining us.
We start with the latest on Ian's path.
For that, we turn to our forecaster, Derrah. Derrah, what's the latest?
Currently, several areas are being monitored for storm surge, so we're monitoring these potential coastal flooding spilling over into these inland areas. You can see here a storm surge watch for Cross City up to Perry, and a storm surge warning issued for Cedar Key, north over in Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and Palatka. The areas behind me highlighted in green are under a flood watch through Saturday, and here in yellow, Gainesville and Cross City being monitored for tropical storm winds reaching these areas within the next 48 hours. Ocala all the way north up to Jacksonville under a tropical storm warning, and south of that into the Villages and Cedar Key under a hurricane watch. We're currently tracking Ian as it makes its way through parts of central Florida right now. This was the system a few hours earlier. You can see up to 138 lightning strikes here in these areas. Right now, it's pretty gloomy outside. Temperature is 82 degrees, but we're tracking up to 9 miles per hour out here on the winds. I'll have more on the impacts of Hurricane Ian and what you can expect in my full forecast. Back to you.
Thanks, Derrah. The 3 million people who live in the Tampa Bay area are wondering if they'll dodge a direct landfall and perhaps get the left side of the hurricane, which is usually not quite as bad. There are less than 3 million around right now due to evacuations. Here you see how crowded I-4 was this afternoon, with people headed inland and very little traffic headed to Tampa. NBC's Chris Pallone is covering the storm from Tampa and brings us today's big picture.
In Tampa, people are scrambling to get ready for Ian.
This one does feel a little bit different. We felt that way in the past before, so it's just better to be safe than sorry.
But many are finding empty store shelves, long lines for supplies, and gas pumps running dry.
This was the 4th gas station we just tried. All of them seem to be out.
By midday, city Sandbag stations had reached capacity. State officials continue to urge people in low-lying areas to get out. While the wind will be bad, they say it's the water they fear that will be deadly.
And you're going to end up with really significant storm surge. You're going to end up with really significant flood events. And this is the type of storm surge that is life-threatening.
2.5 million people up and down the Florida Gulf Coast are under evacuation orders, prompting bumper-to-bumper traffic on many highways.
If people are told to evacuate by their local officials, please listen to them. The decision you choose to make may mean the difference between life and death.
The storm slammed the western tip of Cuba before taking aim at Florida. Ian now predicted to make landfall south of Tampa, but the state's governor doesn't want anyone to get complacent based on the forecast.
Just because the eye's no longer on Tampa Bay, one little wobble can change that.
Thousands of National Guard troops are active, and state and federal agencies have supplies staged throughout the region to help with recovery after the storm moves through. Chris Pallone, NBC News, Tampa.
Gainesville's main homeless shelter, Grace Marketplace, is ready to roll out emergency protocols. Grace will offer emergency shelter services starting tomorrow. During the storm, Grace will operate above normal capacity to provide food, shelter, and other services to the homeless community. Anyone in Alachua County without housing can seek shelter, and your pets are welcome too. Grace has posted more information on its Facebook page and its website. Now, our weather teams have been tracking tropical storms Ian since this weekend. The time to prepare for a hurricane is now and not later. WUFT's Fareeha Abrar tells us how Cedar Key is preparing for the storm. Fareeha?
That's right, Alexis. Cedar Key residents are getting ready. As Ian gets closer to Florida's coast, some islanders are preparing for the worst, while others are cool, calm, and collected. To some locals, today is just another day in Cedar Key. People are walking their dogs, and fishermen, like Trey, are taking advantage of the brewing storm. But to others, like Janice, this is only the calm before the storm.
I woke up this morning feeling like we had dodged a bullet, and I'm still optimistic.
Florida's southern and west coasts are actively preparing for Tropical Storm Ian's landfall arrival, including Levy County, where Ian has the potential to make landfall. Janice Fugate is no stranger to the storm's blow.
It flooded all of this downtown area. We had probably about maybe 2 feet of water or so in our old office.
Recalling Hurricane Hermine and how it destroyed her law firm's original building in 2016, just a few blocks away from the newly built firm, made her want to prepare for the worst.
This is all stuff we have taken from outside. We have to bring in all of our porch furniture and our plants, anything that would likely be blown around.
As you can see, the storefronts of Cedar Key are already boarding up and preparing for Ian's arrival. Even City Hall is protecting its building by putting up these steel bars up against its windows. And Levy County commissioners also posted this emergency declaration. Back on the pier, Trey's focused on fishing.
But I've lived in Florida my whole life during the hurricanes. I've even worked through one outside during Irma. So I'm not really too afraid of it.
Levy County issued an evacuation order for coastal communities, RV parks, mobile homes, and low-lying areas. Some islanders are doing whatever they can to protect their buildings and belongings.
The things I know is we can't stop the wind and we can't stop the water. We can try to protect to the extent that we can.
But one thing is for sure.
Always better to be prepared and not need it than unprepared and need it.
An islander told me despite the fact residents in and around the city are under a mandatory evacuation, they don't think that a lot of people are expecting to evacuate. However, I can tell you from what I saw today, Levy County is not taking this storm lightly. For WFT News, I'm Fareeha Abrar. Back to Alexus.
Thanks, Fareeha. Alachua County is handing out sandbags in preparation for Hurricane Ian. The city of Gainesville started passing out sandbags at the Public Works Administration building located at 405 Northwest 39th Avenue. The distribution began at 8 a.m. and continued until 4 p.m. There was a limit of 10 bags per car. Properly filled and placed sandbags can prevent or reduce floodwater damage. The bags act as a barrier and divert moving water around instead of through buildings.
We are handing out sandbags, pre-filled sandbags to the public so that they can help block their doorways and help keep their homes and businesses from being flooded.
Self-serve sand is available at Citizens Field. Bringing a shovel or towel is recommended. For more information, residents are encouraged to visit safegnv.org.
Alachua County schools will close the rest of the week along with many other school districts. The University of Florida announced last night it will also be closing Wednesday through Friday. North Central Florida could start to see weather impacts tomorrow night. UF student Mara Vaknin wishes she was given more time to make it home before then.
I think it's definitely good that schools are closed tomorrow. I sort of wish that they were closed today as well because I live in South Florida, and my parents have been really pressuring me to go home because they're a little bit worried about me being up here in the storm.
Some schools will be used as shelters in the coming days. UF will open the Southwest Rec Center as a shelter starting tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Now, school sports are also impacted. WUFT Sports anchor Taylor Burr joins us now with the big news for Gator fans.
The timing is rough for UF, which planned the next game as Parents Weekend around a Saturday game day. That's all changing now. The university announced this afternoon that the game against Eastern Washington has been pushed back to Sunday at noon. They'll honor all the Saturday tickets, and if you can't attend on Sunday, you can resell tickets to the account manager at floridagator.com/tickets. Once again, the Gator game is delayed until noon Sunday. Later on in sports, I'll tell you about the changes in the local high school football world. But for now, back to Alexis and Jacob.
Thanks, Taylor. Before that, we have more coverage on Hurricane Ian.
That's right, Alexis. NASA is preparing the SLS rocket behind its Artemis mission for the worst. But before that, new research out of UF tells us how long our food stays without power and what trees can withstand hurricanes the best. We'll have all that for you and more right after the break.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome back. If you lose power during the hurricane, University of Florida food safety experts say you need to keep the food in your fridge out of the danger zone, or else it could make you sick. UF experts estimate that most refrigerators without power can keep food safe for about 4 hours. A freezer should keep food safe for up to 48 hours. Once perishable food gets warmer than 40 degrees, it could start to spoil.
They make things taste sour. They make things taste slimy, but not necessarily are going to cause foodborne illness. They're completely different from the salmonellas and the E. coli's. Now, again, if you have a lot of spoilage, there's a potential for having some of those other pathogens, but spoilage organisms by themselves are not necessarily going to cause a foodborne illness.
UF experts recommend keeping a thermometer inside the refrigerator so you'll know when your food enters the danger zone above 40 degrees. If you have any doubt about how long your perishable food has been in the danger zone, then it's best to just throw it out. Of course, you can also rely more on canned food to get through a lengthy power outage.
Also from UF, new research aims to identify which tree species are less likely to fail during a hurricane or severe storm. UF researchers studied tree damage in the Naples area following Hurricane Irma. They found that 90% of the urban forest survived with minimal to no damage. Trees common to South Florida like live oaks, black olives, mahogany, ficus, and Cuban laurels had the highest rate of survivability. In contrast, nearly 50% of Vera wood and orchid trees were damaged or destroyed. Researchers say conducting a tree inventory is the only way they can quantify the damage and the survivability of the trees.
Just helps with the general management of your urban forest, but it also provides anybody who's looking at some sort of hurricane and tree related study with that front end information that without it you can't do anything afterwards to get any meaningful data.
UF researchers want to collect more information about all tree species across a wider range of wind speeds and rainfall conditions. They hope this information will be used by urban forecasters to make better management decisions about which species to plant.
The rocket for the Artemis 1 mission to the moon is now safely back inside the Vehicle Assembly Building at the Kennedy Space Center. They started the slow rollback last night, and here you see a time lapse from this morning. It took about 11 hours total to get the rocket back inside the building. The move will delay the third launch attempt for the Artemis 1 mission, which is slated to send an uncrewed capsule around the moon. The setback could push the launch to late October or November.
Now more than ever is the final time to make those final hurricane preparations. Jacob, what are you doing to prepare?
Well, I've been starting to pack up some things and get some supplies ready. I actually got a portable charger for all my devices, but as far as where I'm going, not sure yet. What about you?
I packed all my bags this morning and I'm headed to Orlando to seek shelter with my family. Derrah, how much more time do we have to prep?
Well, we're experiencing effects as early as 5 a.m. the Wednesday morning, so be prepared.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
The areas highlighted in green behind me are under a flood watch through Saturday. We're also monitoring storm surge and monitoring the coastal flooding potentially spilling into these inland areas. You can see a storm surge for eastern parts of Palatka, St. Augustine, and Jacksonville, as well as Cedar Key, all the way down south. All these areas under a storm surge warning through the weekend. We're also monitoring Gainesville all the way north under a tropical storm watch, so we're expecting tropical storm grade winds in these areas within the next 24 hours. Ocala all the way north to Jacksonville under a tropical storm warning, and south of that the Villages all the way over to Cedar Key under a hurricane watch. We're currently tracking Ian. This was the system a couple of hours earlier, up to 138 lightning strikes here in these areas as it makes its way through parts of central Florida. Right now, temperatures are 82 degrees outside. We're tracking 9 miles per hour as our current wind speed, but we're expecting these wind speeds to pick up a lot compared to what we're going to see on tomorrow and Thursday. Over the next couple of hours, it's looking pretty quiet. We're not expecting any rain, but that's all going to change Wednesday. So you can see here in Ocala, the first parts of the storm reaching the south parts as soon as 9 p.m. tonight. Overnight tonight, as Hurricane Ian makes its way further north, we're going to be feeling the effects here in Gainesville as soon as the southern parts of Gainesville as soon as 5 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Wednesday is going to be jam-packed with lots and lots of rain. You can see heavy rain reaching all the way from Gainesville to Chiefland as early as 11 a.m. And throughout the day, it doesn't look like we're going to be getting a break from any of that rain. You can see lots of heavy rain making its way further north through Gainesville all the way until 11 p.m. tonight. This is Wednesday at 11 p.m. Lots of rain here on this radar, and it doesn't look like we're going to be getting a break from that rain. We're tracking up to 4 inches in south parts of Gainesville that we're going to be accumulating through Friday, and wind speed is another thing to account for. Max wind gust reaching up to 26 miles per hour in Gainesville on Thursday, 28 in Crystal River, and 31 miles per hour in the Villages. The main takeaways from this storm: heavy rain is likely, flash flooding is likely, and damaging wind gusts are possible. Over the next couple of days, rain chances are very, very high. 80% chance Wednesday through Friday, but we're hoping to regain stable conditions Saturday going into Monday. Back to you.
Thanks, Derrah. It looks like a lot of high school football games are being postponed or even moved due to Hurricane Ian.
That's right, Alexus. The details are still in the works, but we have the schedules here for you as they stand now. That's up in sports after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome to sports. I'm Taylor Burr. Hurricane Ian is shaking up the high school football schedule, causing many schools around Gainesville to move and postpone their Week 6 games. Starting off with the matchups moved to tonight, Gainesville will play Menendez at 6 p.m. and PK Young heads to Santa Fe for a 7 o'clock game. Other schools around the area have different plans. Eastside's game against North Marion will be played on Monday now. The Gibbs versus Hawthorne game will be moved to the following week on October 4th, and Columbia at Orange Park has been postponed to a date that is still yet to be determined. Heading into college game, the Gators will return to the Swamp Sunday to host Eastern Washington to try to get back their winning ways. After a tough loss Saturday against Tennessee, the Gators football team knows it has a lot of work to do. The Florida defense struggled, unable to contain Tennessee's quarterback Hendon Hooker from scrambling out of the pocket. Members of the Gators secondary were responsible for multiple blown coverages that led to huge gains and eventual scores. All eyes are on Gators head coach Billy Napier, who discusses the plans for the defense going forward and the loss.
Yeah, no, we haven't met our objective couple weeks in a row here on third down. I think when we watch the defensive tape, it's simple. It's one player not doing what he's supposed to do quite often, right? It's a guy busting the coverage. It's a guy not in his pass rush lane. It's a guy misfitting the run. It's a lot of good on the tape, but I think you talk about playing team defense, you got to have 11 players doing what they're supposed to do. So
that's all for sports. Back to Alexus and Jacob.
Thanks, Taylor. Before we go, let's take one last look at the hurricane forecast.
Derrah, take us away.
The rest of this evening, we're going to still be pretty much mostly cloudy with those wind speeds picking up later on tonight. The rest of this week, rain chances are very, very high, 80% Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But we're hoping to regain stable conditions as Hurricane Ian leaves us into Monday. Back to you.
Thanks, Derrah. Because UF is closing, we will return first at 5 on Monday.
In the meantime, you can count on WUFT-FM and WUFT.org for Hurricane Ian coverage.
And don't forget, the Gators game is now Sunday at noon.
On behalf of all of us, thanks for watching and stay safe.